Enoch cultivated such an intimate communion with God that, instead of experiencing death, he was translated directly to the heavens. He became famous as the man who did not taste death, an enigma of the scriptures that spans ages and stimulates us to this day. In the beginning, the world was still a tender sphere, vibrating under the burden of the first human lineages, closer to God than any other that would follow. However, with the passage of time, humanity progressively distanced itself, gradually from the essence of the one who conceived them. The successors of Adam and Eve then dispersed across the face of the earth, proliferating and building their existences, but depravity and brutality began to loom. These were difficult times, periods of ascending darkness, and it was precisely in this period, marked by the mixture of the brilliance of creation and human degeneration, that Enoch appeared in the world. Descended from the lineage of Seth, Adam's third son, Enoch carried in his blood the same heritage of those who once walked in the Garden of Eden. Unlike many around him, he inherited not only the burden of transgression, but also a spark of an existence devoted to God. From an early age, Enoch's eyes seemed to glow with a singular curiosity, as if seeking answers to questions no one around him dared to formulate. As the years passed, Enoch's reputation began to spread. It was as if he carried something that other men had already forgotten, a search for the divine essence that had once inhabited the core of his lineage. This enigmatic way and this yearning for something greater were like omens of a journey yet to come. And while the world continued its somber rhythm, Enoch took each step towards a destiny far beyond conceivable, driven by something he still could not identify, but that called him to something extraordinary. As time passed, Enoch began to stand out even more among the men of his time. He was an individual like any other, with everyday concerns and challenges, but there was something in his demeanor, in his discerning gaze and his reserved manner that aroused curiosity. While many around him tried to content themselves with the distractions of everyday life, Enoch seemed to live in another sphere, a reality imperceptible to the eyes of most. He contemplated the world in a different way, as if he glimpsed layers that escaped the hurried gaze of others. For him, the beauties of nature and the mystery of the firmament were not just elements of the scenery, they were indications of a superior presence. Everything around him seemed to communicate about God. Enoch was an ordinary man, but he carried with him a thirst for something perennial, something pure and unknown that burned like a flame within him. He knew, deep down, that the world had a purpose beyond what his eyes could reach, and that there was a creator behind all that wonder, waiting to be discovered. In the solitude of starry nights, or in the dimness of trees at dusk, Enoch reflected, seeking answers. He felt he was being drawn into a communion that no one in his circle understood. Other men saw Enoch as peculiar, perhaps even distant. Little did they know that with each step, he was guided by something that began to fill his soul and shape his destiny. There was a calling, subtle, deep, which little by little became impossible to ignore. It was on one of those serene nights that something different happened. Enoch, immersed in his thoughts and prayers, felt a presence so intense that it was as if the very air around him throbbed. There was a voice, not perceptible to the ears, but clear in his heart, like a murmur that echoed throughout his soul. It was a calling. Something attracted him, awakening in him a conviction that God sought him, desired to be closer to him. Enoch had never experienced anything like it. It was as if his whole being was driven by a design, a mission that he did not yet fully understand. From that day on, Enoch's existence took a new direction. He realized that he could no longer live as before, absorbed by the transient things of the world. This call, this gentle yet firm voice, invited him to a higher path, to a journey of surrender. It was not simple, for he knew that this path would distance him from the common life of other men. But Enoch was determined. He felt that this journey was greater than him, greater than everything he knew. And so, in private, he began to walk this path, seeking to live each day in the presence of God. With each step, Enoch felt he was closer to unraveling the mystery of this calling. The people around him might not understand, but he knew he was where he was supposed to be. The feeling that something magnificent was lurking, just waiting for his heart to be ready, was like a constant spark in his soul. Enoch moved forward, attentive and willing, unaware that this path would lead him to experiences and revelations that no other man would ever experience. From that moment on, Enoch lived as a transformed man. His communion with God was not just a matter of belief or words, it was a relationship that guided every choice, every step. While the men around him chased achievements, possessions, and delights, Enoch followed his own path, a solitary path in the eyes of others. He walked with God, and that was his greatest accomplishment. The life that others sought on earth, he found in union with the Creator. This walk with God was not easy, but Enoch no longer had doubts. There were days when he felt as if he were walking against the current, when his faith was tested by the adversities of daily life. Still, nothing shook his conviction. He knew that the path he was on was the right one. And each time uncertainty threatened to arise, the presence of God made itself felt subtly and powerfully, renewing his strength and filling his heart with peace. And so it was, between faith and daily challenges, that Enoch became a living paradigm of dedication and love for the Creator. He knew that his journey was unique, and this certainty filled him. In those times of increasing violence and disorder, Enoch was like a refuge of serenity. Wherever he went, his presence left a mark like a beam of light cutting through the gloom. People watched him, some admired, others suspicious, but no one could ignore his presence. Enoch did not seek approval, did not crave honors. He only desired one thing: to live in complete harmony with God. Each day, this communion became deeper, as if his steps led him out of what was material. Enoch barely realized it, but his life was turning into something beyond the usual, something no one around him understood. He walked towards the invisible, unaware that this journey was leading him to something that would forever change the destiny of his story. With each passing day, Enoch's connection with God became more intense, more profound. It was as if with each step taken, he immersed himself deeper into an ocean of peace and wisdom. He not only prayed, he dialogued with God. He felt the Creator in everything around him, in the small wonders of daily life, in the whisper of the trees, in the glimmer of the stars that streaked the dark sky. The world was no longer just a physical place for Enoch. It was a reflection of the divine presence. With this intimacy, Enoch began to see beyond what human eyes could perceive. He was overcome by a wisdom that did not come from this world, as if God himself revealed hidden secrets to him, deep truths about good and evil, about creation and celestial mysteries. And yet, Enoch remained humble, living his life with a simplicity that contrasted with the magnitude of the visions he received. He did not use this knowledge to exalt himself, but to strengthen his devotion and obedience. The other men observing Enoch noticed that he was different, but could not understand what made him so special. Enoch did not care about the opinions of others. He followed his path, faithful to the call he felt. While the world around him headed for chaos, he lived in a parallel reality, in profound harmony, guided by the invisible hand of God. It was as if his soul was connected to a frequency that only he could hear, a divine melody that enveloped and transformed him. Enoch knew that his life was marked for something special, even without understanding what the future held for him. Each day, he surrendered more, and the presence of God was so strong that it seemed almost palpable. This sacred bond guided him to a destiny he barely imagined, but which awaited him with mysteries that gradually began to unfold. Over time, Enoch's life became more than an enigma. It was a living testimony to the presence of God among men. He didn't need to speak much. His very way of living was like an open book that spoke of God's goodness and faithfulness. The people around him felt something different when they were near him, something that made them stop and ponder about life, about what truly mattered. There was an almost tangible peace in Enoch's presence, as if heaven were always around him. Some saw him as a source of inspiration, proof that it was possible to live integrally in a world full of corruption. Others, however, looked with suspicion, perhaps even with a touch of apprehension. How could he live so peacefully while the world seemed to crumble? Enoch, however, was not troubled by the reactions of others. His only concern was to draw ever closer to God. What he did not realize was that his life was becoming a light for those who still sought the right path, like a lighthouse in the darkness. Even those who did not understand or accept his faith were touched in some way. It was as if Enoch's presence revealed, without words, a truth that no one could deny. He did not isolate himself, but at the same time he was not like others. His unwavering faith made him a kind of link between the human and the divine. And each day, this connection seemed to grow, illuminating everything around him with an intensity that could not be ignored. Time passed, and Enoch continued to walk with God, firm in his faith and conviction. He knew there was a purpose in all of it, a purpose greater than human understanding itself, and although he could not see what awaited him, he felt that something grand was approaching a destiny that only God himself could reveal. Enoch continued his journey, with his eyes turned upward, unaware that his life was about to take a new step towards the unknown. One day, amidst his reflections, Enoch began to feel something different deep within him. It was as if a profound vision was unveiled to him, a glimpse of what was to come. In his communion with God, he began to see beyond the present, seeing images that spoke of a distant future, laden with mysteries and warnings. As if the Creator himself showed him the direction humanity was taking, Enoch could glimpse a divine judgment, a time when God's justice would manifest upon the earth. These visions were not easy to bear. They came with a weight, a responsibility that Enoch had never experienced. He saw men increasingly given over to wickedness, pride taking hold of hearts, and injustice spreading like a dense shadow. Amidst these revelations, God showed him that he would not ignore evil forever. There would come a day when the Creator would judge the earth, bringing justice and balance. Enoch felt he needed to speak about it, to warn those around him, even if many would mock or ignore him. Moved by the truth of the visions, Enoch began to share what he knew. His words were strong, full of authority, like thunder in a clear sky. He spoke about the coming judgment, about the need to turn back to God before it was too late. Although some were indifferent, others listened with touched hearts, feeling that those words carried something true and profound. Enoch knew that his mission was not to convince everyone, but to plant a seed, a reminder that God observes and acts. As he shared these truths, Enoch continued to walk with God, knowing that these visions were not just for others, but also for himself. The path he followed led him closer and closer to the Creator, and with each revelation, he felt that a new step of his journey was drawing on the horizon, just waiting for the right moment to be revealed. During this journey of deep connection with God, Enoch also experienced being a father. When Methuselah was born, his heart was filled with a new joy and responsibility. He looked at his son in his arms and felt the weight of a future that would extend far beyond his own days. Methuselah, in time, would become the longest-lived man in history, carrying with him the inheritance of a lineage marked by the desire to follow God's will. Enoch, in his silent wisdom, took care that his son grew up, knowing the fear and righteousness that were already hallmarks of his family. But Enoch knew that his role did not end there. He felt that somehow his lineage was destined for something grand and, at the same time, terrible. His intuition told him that the world was increasingly close to a breaking point, a moment when God's justice would manifest. And this certainty was not just a vague feeling, it was a deep understanding, as if he could see future generations in his mind, including the one that would one day witness a great flood. The years passed, and Methuselah grew under Enoch's guidance, becoming part of a lineage that would be crucial for the future of humanity. Enoch lived to see the generation of his grandson Lamech, and later Noah. There was something special about Noah, a sparkle in his eyes that reminded Enoch of himself, of that calling for a greater purpose. Although Enoch might not have known what the future held for Noah, he felt deep in his heart that his grandson would be of great importance in God's plans. And so, time passed, and Enoch remained as the pillar of his family, a living example of faith and communion with God. Each day, alongside Methuselah and his descendants, was a reminder that he was part of something much bigger. He saw the continuity of his walk reflected in the eyes of his children and grandchildren, feeling that the Creator was preparing the way for them, while his own destiny awaited him with increasingly closer mysteries. As the years passed, Enoch's intimacy with God became so intense that he no longer seemed to fully belong to this world. It was as if his soul dwelled in a space between heaven and earth, in a communion that enveloped him in a way no one around him could understand. While other men dealt with their struggles and passions, Enoch walked in silence, enveloped in a peace that transcended earthly concerns. His relationship with God had reached such a profound level that, often, he seemed absent to the eyes of others, as if his mind and spirit were in another dimension. Enoch lived in an invisible frequency, connected to something that was as real to him as the very ground beneath his feet. Words were no longer necessary to communicate with God. A thought, a sigh, was enough, and he felt the divine presence responding subtly yet powerfully. It was a connection that drew him further and further away from the physical world and closer to something eternal. This spiritual intensity was felt by those around him, who noticed an unusual light in Enoch, a calmness that inspired and disquieted at the same time. He was a living mystery, a man who walked on earth but seemed to already inhabit the heavens. And day after day, he felt that something more was approaching, a call higher than time and space itself, a destiny that was beyond any human comprehension. Then, something happened that no one could explain. One day, like any other, amidst his routine of silent search for God, Enoch simply disappeared. The people around him, family, neighbors, all searched for him, scouring every corner where he might be. They called his name. They went to the places he used to frequent, but it was as if he had vanished into thin air. There was no trace, no sign. Only the void, where until recently there had been that unique man, whose presence brought a peace that everyone now missed. The news spread quickly, and soon the story of his disappearance was told with astonishment. Some believed he had been taken by God, that the Creator himself had taken him, while others were perplexed, trying to find a more practical explanation. But there was no elucidation that could satisfy restless hearts. Enoch was no longer among them, and that was a fact. For those who knew him well, his absence seemed to make sense in some way, as if his entire life had been a prelude to this moment. Enoch had always been different, like someone who already belonged to another reality. Perhaps, some speculated, God had indeed taken him. Those who had witnessed his faith, his profound peace, and his way of life could not think of any other explanation, and so he became a legend, a mystery, a man who did not know death but who in the blink of an eye disappeared, like the wind leaving behind only the silence of a destiny that no one would ever fully comprehend. Enoch's disappearance brought with it an enigma that seemed to touch the soul of everyone around him. The narratives about him took on an almost sacred tone, as if they were echoes of something divine. They said that God had taken him because his life on earth could no longer contain such proximity to heaven. Enoch became a living legend, a sign that, by walking with God with a pure heart, it is possible to transcend human destiny itself. Enoch's absence left people in silence, reflecting on what it truly meant. Many saw his departure as a powerful metaphor, a reminder that walking with God could be so profound that it transcended the boundaries of ordinary life. Others looked to the firmament for answers, wondering where that man who once walked among them and now seemed to dwell among the stars might be. Those who had the privilege of knowing Enoch in life remembered every detail of his presence, his serene gaze, his wise words, the tranquility he emanated. His story was passed down from generation to generation like a precious secret. Gradually, he became not just a man of faith, but a bridge between the visible and the invisible world, a constant reminder that there is more to life than what the eyes can see. And as these stories spread, a new hope emerged. Enoch left a legacy, a path of faith and closeness to God that many now wished to follow, knowing that by walking with the Creator, extraordinary destinies awaited. And this desire spread silently, like a subtle call that day after day awaited the next one who dared to answer. Over time, Enoch's story became a symbol of hope and mystery for all who heard it. He was not just the man who disappeared without a trace, but the man who lived God's presence so intensely that he crossed the boundary between heaven and earth. For many, Enoch was proof that the Creator was closer than they could imagine, and that walking with him was a possible calling, an invitation to a life that did not end in human limitations. Every detail of his story was told with reverence. The man who walked with God, who lived among people, but already carried within him the light of the invisible. His steps, his faith, his way of seeing the world were remembered as an example. Enoch had not been a perfect man, but he was a dedicated man, someone who chose God's path at a time when few cared about it. His life was an open letter that, even after his departure, continued to be read, inspiring everyone to follow their own steps of faith. The elders whispered his story on starry nights, and young people listened with shining eyes, feeling the same calling in their hearts. Enoch had lived with such devotion that he became eternal in the memory of the people, an invisible link that connected them to the Creator himself. And so, his narrative began to echo through the generations, as a living memory that, by walking with God, we can touch what is eternal, and perhaps one day become part of that sacred mystery. Enoch's story, though so remote, remains vivid, like a murmur that resonates through time, bringing with it profound lessons. What makes this journey so special is not just the fact that he was taken by God without passing through death. It is the way he lived, with a surrendered heart and a tireless yearning to be close to the Creator. Enoch shows us that walking with God is not about distance or intangibility, but about choice and proximity, a commitment that is renewed with each step, every day. His life teaches us that true faith is silent, deep, and shaped by the small decisions of each day. Enoch did not need recognition or glory. He lived for God, and that was his greatest triumph. The simplicity with which he walked alongside the Creator reminds us that, in the end, it is the quality of our communion with God that defines us, much more than the deeds we accomplish or what we possess. In every generation, there are those who hear the call to walk with God more intimately. Enoch's story serves as a reminder that this journey is possible for everyone. He inspires us to seek this peace, this deep connection that transcends human understanding and draws us closer to the sacred. Perhaps, like Enoch, we may never fully understand what lies on the other side of this walk. But he showed us that, by choosing to walk with God, we connect to something greater than ourselves, something eternal and full of mysteries. If you enjoyed Enoch's story and want to continue following other narratives of faith and overcoming, be sure to like this video and share it with those you love. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content. Together, let's explore more powerful lessons from the Bible.